Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Friends and Fiction Show. I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey.
And I'm Patti Callahan Henry.
And this is Friends and Fiction, 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories to support indie bookstores, authors, and librarians.
So if you're not with us already, we hope you'll join our Facebook group, which by now is over 260,000 members strong, or in other words, over 250,000 members. And we'd like to invite you to follow us on Instagram and YouTube and to subscribe to our Substack newsletter, which is full of awesome bonus content and other author interviews and insider information. So you can find out more about our community and all we have to offer at friendsandfiction.com.
With so many exciting things that are going on in our community, I also want to remind you about our live and in-person events. We had so much fun at our most recent in-person Friends and Fiction Live in Atlanta, celebrating the launch of Patti's new book, The Story She Left Behind. So be sure to mark your calendars because we have 2 more of these live in-person events coming up this summer. On Friday, May 30th, we will be together in Myrtle Beach to celebrate the launch of My Beach House Rules with Litchfield Books. And then on Tuesday, June 17th, we will be together again on the Jersey Shore to celebrate Kristin's The Stolen Life of Colette Marceau for an event hosted by Booktown at the Algonquin Theater in Manasquan. So tickets for both of these events are on sale and selling fast. So be sure to get yours. And I was going to let everyone know we were sold out of the Friends and Fiction subscription box at Oxford Exchange, but our lovely Patti is home from tour and is signing some more books for us. So the box is back on sale. So if you want your Friends and Fiction subscription from Oxford Exchange, you should be able to order that again now.
Yeah, we sold out. And so
excited. I love it when that happens.
So on this episode, we are thrilled to welcome, you all have been asking for her for a long time, to welcome Carley Fortune to discuss her new novel, what a great title, One Golden Summer, which will be out on May 6th.
So we're going to give you a little bit of background on Carley.
Carley is the #1 New York Times and #1 Globe and Mail bestselling author of This Summer Will Be Different, Meet Me at the Lake, and Every Summer After. Her books have sold more than 2 million copies worldwide and have been translated into 30 languages and over 50 territories.
Carley is an award-winning journalist and worked as an editor at some of Canada's top publications, including the Globe and Mail, Chatelaine, and Toronto Life. She oversaw the launch of Refinery 29 Canada. I love Refinery 29.
I know, I love Refinery 29.
As its executive editor until she left journalism in 2021. Carley holds a Bachelor of Journalism from Toronto Metropolitan University.
She spent her young life in the suburbs of Sydney, Australia, and in Barry's Bay, a tiny lakeside town in rural Ontario. I bet it's so idyllic up there. I mean, just saying like rural Ontario, I picture these rolling fields and crystal blue lakes.
So well.
And it is the setting for Every Summer After and her new novel, One Golden Summer.
Carley lives in Toronto with her husband and 2 sons. Her new novel, One Golden Summer, is set to be released, as we said, on May 6th, and will center her beloved Shirley Florek from Carley's debut novel, Every Summer After, which I just loved. All right, Sean, can you bring Carley on?
Hello.
I realized I really didn't gush backstage. I was trying to get us going because I know you're, about to launch a book and very busy. And I was like, I didn't really get to gush to her about how much I love her books. So I'll just infiltrate that a little throughout the day. So
Thank you. You'll just sprinkle gush Two gospel people.
A steady stream.
A steady
I'm
stream of
so
gospel
excited
people.
to pick up One Golden Summer and see Charlie, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be so great. Anyway, but
Thank
welcome.
you.
We're so happy to have you here.
I am so thrilled to be here.
Well, so One Golden Summer is the story of photographer Alice, who returns to Barry's Bay for the first time since a transformative summer at 17, hoping to recapture some of that old magic with her beloved grandmother, Nan. But her quiet plans are upended by the reappearance of Charlie Florak, the once carefree boy from a yellow speedboat, now an irresistible man who sees straight through her. As old memories resurface and sparks fly, Alice is forced to confront the past and the possibility of a future she never saw coming. So that's a little bit about what this book is about. So
Yeah, that was good. I liked it.
I know. I was like, keep going. You got
Yeah.
it. I love the word upend. I'm like, that's when it's a good
Yeah,
story.
I mean, really, it had all the
Things
things.
get upended.
Okay, but tell us a little more if you want. But can you tell us what this book is really about, like deep down?
Yeah, I think, it's about a few things. One is Alice is somebody who is at a bit of a crossroads with her career and her life. She is a freelance photographer, and that job is a hustle. And so she has devoted so much time and energy to pleasing her clients, getting clients, making them happy. And she is now in her 30s, and she's like, well, wait a second, what have I built that's for me? Like, what gives me a creative spark? And in her personal life, she is someone who puts everyone else first. She doesn't like to be a bother. She has a big family. She's always supporting everyone in her family. And she really is on the sidelines of her life in a lot of the way. And it's about really her journey as a woman, to figure out what it is she wants in her 30s and how to ask for it and really take that back. At the same time, of course, it's a love story, it's a romance, and it's about two people who are very, very different on the surface, but also are using different tactics to mask their true selves. So Charlie, for example, is this flirt. He's very arrogant, but inside there's a lot of hurt and pain there. And Alice is very reserved and shy, but she's full of spark. She's full of energy. And the two of them together have such great chemistry, but they also pull out these different sides of themselves. And I loved their dynamic together.
Their banter is so charming. It really is. Just their little back and forth is, it's really good. I mean, just from that first phone call, it's really.
Thank you. I have Charlie since, I wrote Charlie in Every Summer After in my first book, and he was my favorite character. He's always been my favorite character to write, because he's just I feel like I put him on the page and he just does his own thing. And it's just so, I'm not sure I've written any other character like that, where he just kind of does his thing and everybody kind of reacts to that. And he's just he's so much fun to work with.
He is fun.
That's amazing. There's a main character named Charlie in my newest novel, and something about the name too, right?
It is.
It's a really friendly, open name that comes from a very formal name of Charles.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah. I've always liked the name. I actually named a girl Charlie once in one of my novels.
I love the name Charlie for a girl. When I was pregnant with my second boy, I was writing I didn't know I was having a boy, but I was writing Every Summer After. I'm like, if it's a girl, could we name her Charlie? And I was like, no, Carly and Charlie is a little bit.
That's
too much.
Listen, I married a Pat, and we're Pat and Patti. So
stop.
I know it's not.
I know, but that couldn't be helped.
That couldn't be.
That's true.
Control not naming your child. Also,
I wasn't going to not marry him because it was Pat and Patti. So anyway, okay, back to you, Carly. Your new novel is described as a radiant escape to the lake, which I would like to do today, by the way. Can you tell us what drew you back to Barry's Bay and that lakeside setting? What was it that drew you back in?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Barry's Bay, as you mentioned, and my parents, I grew up on the lake, so we were there year round down the dirt road in the bush on the water, and there were very few year round homes on the lake. It was mostly cottagers, and they would kind of cottagers. Yes.
I
That's
like
cute.
that. I've
Yeah.
never heard that phrase.
Yes,
I-
it's a very Ontario thing, cottaging. I think
Taking a
cabin.
noun and turning it into a verb. Cottaging.
Cottaging, yes, it's you cottage, you go cottaging, and there's a part of Ontario that's known as cottage country. And so in the summer, the cities, particularly Toronto, they kind of empty out on the weekends, and everybody's at the lakes. Everybody goes north to the lakes, and but I lived on the lake, and so my parents sold that house about 15 years ago. But we still go back to the area, my husband and I, and my boys every summer, and it is like what the place. It just really speaks to my soul there. It's a place where I feel like most creative. And I knew after I wrote Every Summer After, before I had an agent or an editor, I had this like Charlie really stuck with me, and I started playing with a few lines of something told from his perspective, and I put that aside. And when I was working on my second book and discussing that with my editor, and I had mentioned Charlie, but I didn't really have an idea, and so it was once Every Summer After came out, people started asking me for it. And they wanted a sequel. They wanted Charlie to have a happy ending. I had people approach me at events very strongly, like demanding justice for Charlie. I was pitched different characters who should be his love interest. It's people, as people continue to discover Every Summer After, I had continued to hear that they wanted more. And it wasn't until I had put my third book to bed that I felt like I could go back, and that I had something else to say about that place. And I needed to find a different character to like look at the lake from a different vantage point. And I just needed some distance, I think, and confidence as a writer to go back again.
I love that. I've actually just done that for the first time. Also, like I have a book that came out a few years ago, and I never expected to write a sequel, but there's a new protagonist, but then there are two old secondary characters that have also become protagonists that like people, write to me about a lot. And I was like, wow, that would be kind of interesting. But it took years to be like, no, I think I want to do that. Or I think this is the right way in, or it's interesting. Patti, I don't know if you agree with this, but I do think sometimes our readers like inform our stories and kind of where we go next. I mean, it's always interesting.
What they ask for and talk about and bring up and say is their favorite. We have to, we're writing for them as well as for our own creative imagination. So you put it on the scale and see what happens.
Yeah. And like, you really want to do something that it like stands up for its on its own. I didn't want to just write a book because people wanted to see more Sam and Percy and Charlie and the lake. And just like, I needed something that I really wanted to like sink my teeth in and spend, we spend all this time with our books. We need to feel like engaged in it too. So figuring that part out too and figuring out who this character would be was difficult, because all my books start with setting for me. It's always the setting comes first, and then the protagonist, and then her love interest grows out of her. And with this book, I had him, and I knew him so well. So trying to figure out whose story this was going to be, who his love interest was going to be, that took a lot of work.
Interesting. All right,
Speaking
I love that.
of.
Well, yeah, that was one of my questions. All right, but let's talk about Alice for a minute, because she is a photographer who sees other people really clearly. Like that's such an interesting character trait of hers, but it feels like she isn't very used to being truly seen herself. Do you know what inspired that character trait? Like, is that something that you've experienced in your life, or was it just something that you imagined? It works really well.
I think I just loved photography as that kind of metaphor as somebody. And I have one of my dear friends is a photographer, and she used to, when we were younger, she would always have her camera at events, and she's way more comfortable taking other people's. She doesn't like her photo taken. She's much more comfortable taking somebody else's photo, and like spiraling that into like a character, like that just seemed like such a perfect metaphor for someone who does not want to be in front of the lens of their own life either. And And I also really liked this idea that she had a connection to the characters from Every Summer After from a distance. Like she had taken this photo of three teenagers in a yellow boat one summer when she was at the lake when she was 17. And that photo really sparked her confidence as like she thought, this is a good photo. I could be a photographer. She sold that. This is the first photo she sold. And I loved the idea that she spent this summer watching the characters from afar. She didn't talk to them, but they left an impact on her. And in that way, she became this stand-in for the readers of Every Summer After, who also had spent like the summer that they found them watching those characters play out their dramatics. And I loved that about Alice.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And because she was standing back and that was in the past, this story very much deals with nostalgia. And, you're talking about her looking at the photo of the yellow boat and the tension between the past and the present, between time and memory. How do you approach weaving together the past and the present, which I think is in some way asking you about your process of incorporating those two, especially since this was a sequel?
Yeah, all of my books, except for One Golden Summer, weave in chapters from the past in different ways, and they kind of jump through time back and forth. And I did not want to do that with this book, but I did. But the past does really leave a mark on these characters, and they're both, I think, looking at the future and but feel like kind of pulling back. They spend their summer doing this bucket list. Alice wants to spend the summer the way she wished she did when she was 17. So she writes this bucket list of things she wished she did when she was 17 there for the summer. And she and Charlie go about doing these things. And they are both, falling back on these like kind of low stakes teenage experiences because their adult lives are kind of like looming in front of them, and they are really feeling the passage of time. And Alice is there with her grandmother, and she too is kind of grappling with what it means to be, this woman in her 80s who has lost her husband, has lost her best friend, and she's at the same time like having her own kind of coming of age. And we're always, I think we're always coming of age in our own different ways. And
it's never over.
There's all these,
which is so interesting. Didn't you think that like when you were growing up, there was going to be this moment where you were suddenly an adult?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I thought that I would get married at 28. But we wouldn't have children right away, and that would be the most fabulous time because we would have two incomes and we would just be jet setting and we would have all this time to ourselves, and then eventually we'd have children, and that's how life was going to work. That's what I thought when I was in my early 20s.
And I used to think that the part of your life where your children are home with you was like most of your life. Like I used to look at my parents and be like, oh, well, the bulk of their life it's like with me now, home with them. And now I'm like, wait, I have a 13-year-old. Like it's not, it's like
it's
this
a
little
flash.
Yeah, it really is. And that the way that we like time passes quickly, but we're also pulled back into time, and we also have trouble kind of like looking at what's coming, all of that, the way we grapple with how time slips and slows is really part of the book too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am a big fan of multi-generational stories. That's something that I love to write. It's something that I love to read. I love a grandmother character. I just think they add so much. So Nan was just such a great character to me. And she is the reason that Alice comes back to the lake in the first place. She's kind of trying to help her regain some of her spirit after she has a broken hip. So do you have a special grandparent in your life that inspired Nan, or was she just a fun piece of your imagination?
Yeah, I mean, kind of both. My mom grew up in Toronto, and her parents had a cottage up north. So she grew up as a cottager, and my grandmother would take all 4 kids to the lake and have them there with her all week. My grandfather would work in the city and come up on the weekends. And I don't think they had a phone. There was no washing machine. The boys would, be off playing in the lake. They would have to like fetch their water, like take a boat to fetch the water from a well. And she was, there's these old photos of her, these black and white photos of her and my grandfather at the cottage. And they also had very, very, very close friends. And I just, so it really was inspired by that. I never met my grandparents. They've died before I was born. But it really is kind of an ode to that.
I love that. That's really cool. That connection through time. Okay. So Carley, you have become one of the most beloved voices in contemporary romance and in short order. I mean, this is, you've done this very quickly. Why do you think readers are so drawn to your novels?
Ooh,
I
thank
know.
you.
Is that hard to answer?
Yeah, sorry. As soon as I said it, I was like, that might be hard.
I think, I think my books are really about, I think there's a few things that I try to do that feel very me, which is the setting that like these places they feel so real, and some of them are real. And I take a lot of care in building my settings. My last book this summer will be different was set on Prince Edward Island, which is a little island off the east coast of Canada. And I spent I did traveling there. I had a fact checker, somebody from Prince Edward Island read it to make sure it was right. I really want the settings to come alive and for people to feel like they've gone on a trip and taken a break from their lives. And I think that what is great about having these settings where you're transported into the pages is it makes the characters come to life. Like you can see them walking around, and hopefully you feel like you're snooping on real people having these experiences. So I think there's that, and they just feel very summery and hopefully and nostalgic. And I think they're not a rom-com, and I hope like there's humor in the books. They're I hope I try, but they're more of an emotional read. And so I think, there are certainly other romances that are similar, but there are so many rom-coms and I couldn't possibly compete on the level of like line by line humor. It's not what I do. Like, I think my books are a bit, I want them to kind of like run an emotional roller coaster so that you might be crying, you might be laughing, you might be like contemplative, and but like that's what I've kind of been able to identify as like two things that I think I do, but I don't know.
No, I love it. I totally agree. With someone who loves your books, I think you do nostalgia really, really well. And I think the idea of, there's always kind of that piece of you. I don't know. I'm a Cancer, so we tend to be nostalgic, right? Anyway, but I love that piece of them. I think you do it really well.
Thank you.
I love how you said it's like you didn't use the word voyeur, but we're observers, right? And we feel a part of it. It's kind of like we're Alice in the original one, right?
Yeah,
we're behind the camera, right? Give up a real gift for putting us on the shore, like we're behind a camera. But any second we could be part of your story.
Yeah. And I really try, and there's, other authors who do this brilliantly as well, but I really try to examine like a character's life beyond the central romance. Like the romance is such a fantastic way to explore so many aspects of being a woman. And I've realized, I was a journalist previously, and I worked a lot in women's media, and I didn't really connect my life as an author with my journalism life until recently that I'm still like examining the stories that I may have assigned to a writer about career and relationships and mental health, but now I'm weaving them into this love story. And I love that. Like, I love the kissing, but I also like looking at all these other aspects of our lives and the way we relate to each other.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I was curious about how being a journalist shaped you as a novelist, but you just told us. Do you think that you've brought forth some of those habits when you were a journalist, and especially, launching things like Refinery, like taking it from scratch and launching it forward? What do you feel was most beneficial from that to pull into your novelist career?
One, I knew when I sat down to write my first book, that I needed to have a very clear goal for myself. Like I did the math on, I said, I want to write a book. I'm going to finish it by the end of the year. And I calculated how many days were left in the year and how many words.
That journalist thing, like there is a deadline. You can't meander about for the next, 4 years.
Exactly. Yes. And it was not that much. It was 388 words a day. And so that's what I did. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I wrote before work. Sometimes I wrote after work. I wrote on the weekends. And I finished it. And it was like that. And I wasn't going back and trying to perfect what I had written the day before, because I can be my own worst enemy. And I've seen other writers who can be their own worst enemy in terms of like getting stuck in the weeds and never finishing. And as an editor, I would always be saying, just hand it over to me. Give me what you got. We'll we'll figure it out. So I had that experience, and I had a lot of, storytelling experience. I've been a journalist for 16 years. So on the writing side, it was very, very helpful. And then on the publishing side, I love like the idea of like trying to speak to an audience, and how do you like communicate with an audience, and what does a book cover look like? And, having worked in magazines, I like did like the whole magazine cover thing. And so that was really fun. Like it was fun to pull that kind of experience into the books too.
That's cool. Okay. So this is like, so I hate to even ask you this, but
we're going to do it anyway.
We're going to do it anyway. Do you have your next idea brewing, or are you kind of just like getting this one out and taking a breather? Yes. Okay.
I love it. Wait, hold that up. How did you bind that?
Oh, I just did the spiral bind at the printer.
Okay. Like at a Kinko's or something?
I send them. So we have a printer, not so far, an independent printing company. I just send them the file and tell them to spiral bind it, and they just do it all.
Then you go pick it up.
And you pick it up.
I'm going to do that.
Why am I printing it on a 3-hole punch paper?
I did that, Patti. I was doing that. And then I was like, there's a better way.
Yeah, I have them on a 3-hole punch thing, and I put it in a notebook, and then I lug this big notebook around, and then I read it out loud. And now Kristy has introduced me to Speechify, so someone else can read it out loud to me, and I'm not alone in my room going. And then, so I'm listening to it in my 3-hole notebook and writing on it. So I like the spiral bound better.
Oh, yeah. I like the spiral bound. And the other thing I've started doing is then after that's like my first big read when I'm doing my revision. And then I transfer it to a Kindle Scribe. And I had seen another author had done this. So you put it into a PDF, and you can mark up the PDF and it doesn't transfer your changes into whatever you're working on. But then I'll have my Kindle, and will put all my edits in from the Kindle onto
That's amazing.
It's
so weird. It's what we're used to, right? So I love writing on the paper.
Yeah.
So that's why I've always printed it. I don't know how it would feel.
I can think that a manuscript is so clean, and then I print it out and I do that read like on actual paper. And it's amazing the things that I catch. And I think like, wow, I thought this was really. Anyway, okay. So can you tell us anything about the new book, or is it still top secret?
It's still top secret. It will, barring any disaster, will be come out next year. It's a love story. It's a bit like I feel I feel like it has a bit of a different mood. It's but I haven't sent it into my editor yet. So
There you go. There you go.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so we
Well,
want to
look,
do.
and so tune in everyone for more hints about how to read your
That's-
own work. I mean,
That's right. Okay, so Carly, we have some rapid fire questions for you. We don't normally do this, but this will be fun with you. I don't
it's
know
so
why.
fun.
So you can answer them as quickly or as long as you would like. This is really up to you.
okay.
All right. First book you remember falling in love with.
Tomorrow When the War Began.
Oh, wow.
I don't know that book.
By John Marsden. It's Australian YA.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, I gotta check that out. All right, coffee shop or lakeside cottage for writing?
The Cottage.
She's a cottager.
I know. I mean, I
cottaging.
knew that one already, but it's just
Do you have a favorite romantic movie of all time?
13 Going on 30.
I
I love that one.
I love that movie.
Is there a song that feels like summer to you?
Gosh, so many. I feel like, you know what? I'm going to say Rod Stewart, Forever Young, because it comes up over and over again in One Golden Summer. And I was trying to pick a song that felt so summer to me. And
That's a good
Wait,
one.
I want to hear yours, Kristy. What feels like summer to you?
Oh, you go first. Let me think for a minute.
The Eagles or Glenn Fry, Boys of Summer. Or is that Don Henley? The Boys of
Oh,
Summer?
yeah. That's a really good one.
Every time I hear that song, I'm like on the beach.
You know, those are two like really good ones. I think for me, it's like beach music, like old school, like Chairman of the Board, like Carolina Girls and like Under the Boardwalk. And like, just those are like, you know, my childhood summers, I feel like.
yeah.
And anything Kenny Chesney. I mean,
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Labor Day weekend. I was 17. You know?
yeah, exactly.
I'm a very big Harry Styles fan, and I feel like Watermelon Sugar is like
There's a good one.
as a new summer classic. That is.
I'm so happy that we
We
just
should
got
make a playlist.
Well,
Patti,
I was going to say,
Kristy,
I was
Carley.
about to make a playlist just for myself so that like when I'm on tour, I can have my like summer songs and feel
that's
summery.
nice.
So I'll share it with you guys too.
Are you
Please.
doing anything else for your tour that to like put you in the mood? I'm so curious.
Honestly, I feel like I'll be listening to my own book a lot on Speechify.
Yeah.
No, the one you're working on, not the one you're going on tour.
What I'm
for.
working on.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, back to you, Carley. What is always in your beach bag?
A book or a magazine.
Yep.
Sunscreen. Sunscreen that is lip balm.
Yes.
A hat. I am like I tan nicely, but since I had a kid, I get melasma. So I'm always like, it gets dark in the sun. I'm very much about sun safety.
That's very good. Most romantic book boyfriend of all time. It can be one of yours or somebody else's.
Oh, that's so hard.
That is hard.
Like, what
Do you want to skip that one?
Here, I'll go. Ned
Yeah,
Nickerson, Nancy Drew's boyfriend.
Oh,
I was in love with him when I was a little kid.
Nickerson.
He had that
I'm
little
in love with.
collar, remember?
I didn't read romance until I was an adult. So I don't have like from my childhood
I don't really super think I could answer this either. So that was an unfair question. We're just going to skip that one.
I would say of my male characters, Felix is the most from The Summer Will Be Different, is definitely the most romantic.
Okay.
Yes, he's a sweetheart.
I like that.
All right. Last but not least, a book you wish you could read again for the first time.
Ooh. Maybe Summer Sisters by Judy Blume.
Oh, that's a good one.
Judy Blume.
Yeah.
She's the best. Okay, Carley. Well, we have a little bit more to talk to you about, but first, just a couple quick reminders for our listeners and viewers out there.
For all of you watching and listening, we encourage you to rush out, or maybe you're watching and not listening and you just see the closed caption. We encourage you to rush out and buy your copies of One Golden Summer. The perfect place to do that is the Friends and Fiction bookshop, on bookshop.org. You'll not only be getting it at a discount, but all of your purchases there support our show, our guests like Carley, and independent bookstores nationwide, which is why we started this in the first place. And don't forget to visit friendsandfiction.com for details on our show schedule, upcoming in-person events, and links to the award-winning Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa. Then there's our merch store where you can get the boxes that are back in stock, and our Substack newsletter sign up.
So speaking of our Substack, you can read all of our free weekly posts on the Substack app or website, or subscribe for free to get them directly to your inbox. And if you upgrade for just $5 a month, you'll have access to deeper dives with all our weekly show guests, plus monthly roundtable discussions like the super fun one MKH just did about rom-coms, plus bonus Q&As with additional authors like the recent ones we ran with Renee Rosen, Lisa Unger, and Chris Pajalian. So if you enjoyed tuning in for our weekly author interviews, this is a big way that you can support our show for about $1 a week.
All right, Carley, where can everyone catch up with you on the road or connect with you online while this book is exploding into our summer season?
Well, online, I'm at carleyfortune.com and on Instagram at carleyfortune. And I start my book tour May 5th in New York. I'm going to New York, Brooklyn, Franklin, Indiana. I'm going to St. Louis.
I'm going to Franklin, Indiana. I was just in Franklin. You're going to love it.
I'm so excited.
That library is amazing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And then I'll be in Canada doing my tour at home too. Yeah.
That's awesome, Carley.
I love that you could rattle that off. I'm not there yet, but you're before me. So that's anyway.
You could rattle your first week off, Kristy.
Probably my first week. Yeah, you're right. I could.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Carley, this was so much fun. We loved having you. Thank you for joining us. We wish you so much luck with the launch, and it was such a pleasure speaking with you. So thanks for being with us on the Friends and Fiction Show.
Thank you.
And everyone, be sure to tune in next week when Kristy, Kristin, Mary Kay, and I will welcome our old cohort. I mean, not old in age, but our old friend, Mary Alice Monroe, to discuss her new novel, Where the Rivers Merge. That show will be on the Facebook page and YouTube on Wednesday, May 7th, and on the podcast, May 9th.
Thanks to all of you out there for being with us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.